Here's how animals behaved during the solar eclipse. Hi there, everyone. I'm Jeff, and this is Plain English, where we help you upgrade your English with stories about what's going on in the world. This is a great idea because you get exposure to all kinds of new words and topics that you might not otherwise hear about in English. There was a big story in North America recently. A solar eclipse ran through Mexico, the middle and eastern parts of the US, and eastern Canada. A lot of attention has been paid to what people did during the eclipse. But today, I want to talk about what animals did during the eclipse. Now, this eclipse, just by chance, passed over 6 zoos. So that gave animal researchers a lot of information on how animals behave during an eclipse. That's what we'll talk about today. Get ready to learn some new animal names. In the second half of the lesson, I'll show you how to use the English expression quiet down, and you'll learn the names of 2 of the school bus drivers I had when I was a kid. That's fun. This is lesson 672, so that means JR, our producer, has uploaded the full lesson content to plainenglish.com/672. That's where you'll find the transcripts, translations, quizzes, and other exercises. plainenglish.com/672. Let's get started. About a month ago, on Monday, April 8th, a sliver of North America experienced a total solar eclipse. A solar eclipse happens when the moon gets in the way of the sun's light. In a total solar eclipse, the moon completely blocks the sun, and darkness falls in the middle of the day. Each eclipse is visible in just a small part of the Earth's surface. The path of totality is a sliver of the Earth's surface where the sun's light is totally blocked by the moon. Areas outside the narrow path of totality can see partial darkness, but it's not the same. Total solar eclipses are rare. They're visible for only a few minutes, and they're only visible in a small area. So that means it's not well known how animals react to the total midday darkness of an eclipse. The 2 biggest studies on animal behavior during an eclipse were done in the 1930s and in 2017. But this year presented an excellent opportunity for animal researchers. This time, 6 zoos were in the path of totality, and several others experienced partial darkness. So this eclipse was a great time for animal researchers to observe animal behavior. But let's take a step back. Why would animals behave differently? Well, like us, animals have biological clocks that tell them how to behave at different times. But unlike us, they wouldn't know why total darkness would fall midday. So their biological clocks would tell them it's daytime, but their eyes would tell them it's night. How would they react? The short answer is that some animals exhibited anxiety, some ignored the eclipse completely, and some started their nighttime rituals early. At the San Antonio Zoo, meerkats and wild birds started their nighttime rituals. In Dallas, zookeepers said they saw elephants huddled together and move back to the area where they slept. Primates, like gorillas, also started to behave like it was time for bed. Birds made a lot more noise, disoriented by the darkness. In Cleveland, the flamingos got agitated as darkness fell and started to flock together. Red wolves ran around confused. At the Akron Zoo, Galapagos tortoises went into their shells, but the grizzly bears didn't seem to mind, and the lions just went back to sleep. In Indianapolis, the sea lions and other creatures started making noise as the eclipse started, but then they quieted down during the 4 minutes of total darkness. Warthogs, cheetahs, and macaws all began their nighttime rituals. The director of the Culiacan Zoo in Mexico pointed out that the eclipse is too short for many animals to fully enter sleep mode, but some animals started their nighttime rituals nonetheless. In Quebec, 2 pandas spent the afternoon walking around, but when the eclipse came, they climbed a tree and went to sleep together. The zookeepers there noted that prey species tended to react more strongly than predator species did. At the Fort Worth, Texas Zoo, nocturnal animals like owls showed an increase in activity. They thought it was time to wake up. The Fort Worth Zoo notes that no animals there appeared to be distressed by the eclipse. Zoos took advantage of the eclipse to study and note animal behavior. At the Columbus, Ohio Zoo, observers from the zoo and from a nearby university carefully watched the animals and noted what they were doing every 15 seconds during the eclipse. They had also gone to document animals' behavior every afternoon for weeks ahead of time to establish a baseline of normal afternoon activity. But there is a limit to how much we can really know from these limited studies. A total solar eclipse is only 4 minutes, and zoos aren't often in the path of totality. That means there isn't a large sample size of behavioral studies. And even when researchers can study animals at a zoo, there aren't many animals to observe each time. And animals have a mind of their own. They won't all react the same way. In 2017, for example, giraffes at a South Carolina zoo started to gallop when darkness fell, something they don't do unless they're being chased. But in 2024, the giraffes at the Fort Worth Zoo were calm. There's a total solar eclipse somewhere on Earth every 18 months. Unfortunately, though, a lot of them happen over the ocean or in very remote parts of the world. The next one, in August 2026, will cut diagonally across Spain, the only other landmass that will experience total darkness will be Greenland. The eclipse after that, in 2027, will trace the northern coast of Africa. Australia will see one in 2028 and another one in 2030. Quiet down. This is an easy one. To quiet down is to lower the noise level. This is almost always used to refer to a person or a group of people. When you quiet down, you reduce the amount of noise that you are making. Most English-speaking kids will learn this expression at a young age. That's because their parents and teachers are constantly telling kids to quiet down. Teachers in a classroom would tell kids to quiet down when the noise level of the classroom is getting too high. When we were very little, we had nap time in school. We would all take naps in the middle of the day. And when nap time came, some kids would keep talking, and the teachers would say, "Quiet down." They wanted less noise so that we could all sleep for a bit. And then when we got older, we had group projects and assignments. The teacher would talk for a while, and then the students would work together on projects. But you can imagine that the noise level would get too loud. And whenever our teachers thought we were making too much noise for the situation, they would tell us to quiet down. I went to school in a yellow school bus. It stopped at the bottom of my driveway. Now, some years we had nice bus drivers. I remember one named Charlene. She would let the kids have some fun on the bus. But another bus driver was named Mary Jane, and she didn't put up with anything. When we were on Mary Jane's bus, we were expected to sit in our seats, face the front, and not make any noise. Now, there are two things I always remember Mary Jane telling us: face the front and quiet down. When she told us to quiet down, it meant that we were making too much noise. Parents tell their kids to quiet down if the kids in the house are making too much noise. That could be at the dinner table, at bedtime, or just whenever the noise level is too high in the house. Quiet down, parents often tell their kids. You can say quiet down to other adults, but just be aware that this is something that parents say to kids. So if you say it to other adults, they might not like it very much. If your neighbors are playing music at a loud volume, you could ask them to quiet down, but it would feel like you're talking to kids. They might turn the music up in response. A library is a place where you shouldn't make a lot of noise. If you make too much noise in the library, as a kid or as an adult, the librarian might ask you to quiet down. Up until this point, our examples have been about quiet down in the imperative or with a request. You're telling someone, usually a child, what to do. But you can use quiet down to describe what people do too. We most often use quiet down to talk about the noise people themselves make, but you can sometimes use quiet down to refer to an environment, usually an environment where people are making noise. I used to go to a big office in Chicago, a floor full of people and activity. Phones ringing, emails, conversations, keyboards, typing, all that stuff. It wasn't a loud office, but there was a lot of activity. But the office started to quiet down around 6. There were certainly people working after 6 o'clock, but there weren't as many meetings. Phones weren't ringing as much. Things started to quiet down. That means that the noise level of the environment started to fall. It wasn't as noisy. So you can say the office started to quiet down around 6, or simply things started to quiet down around 6. Do any of you work in the hospitality industry? If so, you know that there are peak hours. If you work in a restaurant, you might have a big rush around mealtime. Lots of activity in the kitchen, lots of people in the dining room. In the US, that time might be from 6 to 8 at night, depending on the type of restaurant and the location. So you can say, things were crazy here until 7:30, but then it started to quiet down after about 8 o'clock. That means the environment got quieter after 8 o'clock. Most of the time, you'll use quiet down when referring to people or to activity with people. But we like to humanize our animals, and I used quiet down when referring to animals in our story about how animals reacted during the recent solar eclipse. I said that many animals started to quiet down when darkness started to fall over the zoos in the eclipse's path. That means the animals had been making noise or moving around, but they lowered their noise levels, stopped moving as much when total darkness fell during the eclipse. And that's all for today. If you got to the end of this lesson and you find yourself wanting to practice quiet down, then we have the perfect way to do that. Find the tab called Your Turn on the transcript and write a sentence using quiet down. If you do that, I'll read your example and give you personal feedback. Your Turn is available to all Plus members. So if you're not yet a Plus member, then make sure to sign up at plainenglish.com/plus, PLUS. We'll be back on Thursday with a new story and a new expression. See you then.